Welcome back. Today, I'm sharing 5 tips for beginner gardeners. This is In the Garden. Thanks for joining me. I'm glad you're here. This is In the Garden, where I share tips and tools to help new gardeners be successful in backyard vegetable gardening. Today, I'm sharing 5 tips to help you as a beginner gardener starting your first vegetable garden. Tip number 1 is to start small. Avoid planting too much too soon as you're still learning. Start with a few easy to grow options like tomatoes, peppers, and squash. Also, think about things that you actually want to eat. Don't start planting a bunch of vegetables that you don't actually enjoy eating, and you're going to fill your garden with them and put in a ton of work for stuff you don't actually enjoy. So start small with just a few things that you're actually going to enjoy eating. Starting with a small raised bed like 4x4 or a few containers is a great option for your first time garden. And as you learn and expand your knowledge and grow and get some experience, you can grow your garden and expand it as well. A lot of times when we're first starting our gardens, we get really excited and we want to grow all of these exotic things that we hear about other gardeners growing. But a lot of those can be really difficult to grow, and they have a lot of problems and complications that come along with them. So starting with something easy like tomatoes or peppers is really a great option for a first-time gardener. And as you learn and grow and your experience increases, you can start to expand your garden to include more and more things. Tip number 2 is to know your growing zone and your frost dates. This is really important, especially as you're gardening for the first time. Your growing zone will help you to determine what will grow well in your area during what times of the year. Some plants thrive in cool weather, things like lettuce and spinach, and other things like tomatoes and peppers, they thrive in the warmer weather. And knowing your frost dates, both your last and your first frost, is going to help you to plant things at the right time so that your garden can thrive. If you've lived in an area for some time, you probably already have an idea of when the last frost date might be or when your first frost date might be and what kind of weather you typically have. So you may already have some of that information, but knowing specifically what frost date is for your area and knowing what growing zone you're in is going to help you to really know which varieties of plants are going to do best in your area. And if you've moved to an area and you're brand new, then knowing those things is going to be critical to being able to plant and have a successful garden. If you have no idea what your growing zone is or what your first or last frost date is, I'm going to leave a link in the description that's going to help you to find that information with just your zip code. If you're in the United States, you could just click on that link and find it easily and quickly. If you're somewhere else in the world watching, you might need to search on Google or another search to find your last frost date based off of your area. If you're enjoying the video, make sure you hit the like button so I know that you're enjoying it, and be sure to subscribe so you can get all my latest videos. Tip number 3 is to water consistently. Steady moisture levels in your soil are key to having a successful vegetable garden. We want to make sure we're not overwatering or underwatering, but also that the soil is staying at a constant level of moisture, that it's not fluctuating from day to day from really dry to really wet, because that stresses out our plants. The amount you have to water is going to vary depending on where you live, the temperature, the kind of weather that you experience, but ideally you would want to water on a regular schedule. 2 to 3 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, or every day if you have to, but you want to make sure that it's consistent and that the soil is not getting oversaturated or allowing it to dry out too much before you're watering it again. And early morning watering is best because it allows the water to go deep into the soil to help build that strong root system. It prevents it from just evaporating off the top as if you were to just water, during the heat of the day. Most of that water is just going to evaporate before it has a chance to really absorb down into the soil. And that's also going to help to prevent any kind of disease, preventing things like mildew or mold from growing on the surface of the soil. If you water too late in the day and the soil stays wet on the surface throughout the night, those types of problems can start to come into your garden. And to ensure that that moisture is staying steady in your soil throughout the day, even when the sun's out, you can use mulch on top of the soil to help steady that. It helps to moderate the soil temperature, prevent evaporation, and it's going to keep your plant able to access that moisture throughout the day. Tip number 4 is to check for pests early and often. Having pests come into your garden can really wreak havoc if you don't catch them. Things like squash bugs or tomato worms will really damage plants, and they can do it quickly, and if you don't catch that infestation before it gets really going, it can destroy your entire garden. As soon as your plants have gone outside, that's when you're going to start checking them for pests. You can begin by just looking for any of the bugs that you don't want to have on your plants. Check your tomatoes for tomato hornworms. Check your squash plants for squash bugs. You're just going to search really thoroughly and pay really close attention to the leaves, to the fruits, to the stems, and even on the ground around your plants. And if you don't see any actual bugs on your plants, you can still look for things like holes in leaves or wilting leaves or other damage that you might find on your plants that would suggest that there's some kind of pest in your garden. If you find something in your garden that you don't want there, you need to take care of it quickly. Things like squash bugs can be gotten rid of quickly if you catch them early, but if they get allowed to be established in your garden, it's a lot harder to get rid of them. You could use an organic pest control, or you can remove those pests individually. For something like squash bugs, I just remove all of the bugs that I find, and any eggs that I find on leaves, I'll remove those from the garden. And you just have to continue checking. It's a continual process throughout the growing season. You need to watch for them from the time you put them outside until you're done harvesting in the fall. And companion planting in your garden can actually help to deter pests. Planting something like marigolds with your tomatoes can actually help deter pests and keep them from ever even getting onto your plants. And finally, be patient. Be patient with yourself and be patient with your garden. It's a learning experience and you're gonna have failure along the way. It's inevitable. Even experienced gardeners face years where they really struggle. I've had years recently where my garden, it just didn't do well. And that's okay. You learn from it. You get that experience. You figure out what went right and what went wrong, and you just continue to grow in it. Don't get too frustrated if something doesn't turn out the way you wanted. You know, if you didn't get the tomatoes you were looking for, it's okay. Learn from it and plant it again next season and try again. And as you're learning, be sure to just, you want to celebrate all of those successes that you do have along the way. If you get your first tomato, be proud of that moment. It's going to be your first one, but there's a lot more coming behind it. And if in your first year you didn't get any tomatoes, you still learned something, and next season it's coming for sure. Gardening, learning to garden, it's a journey. And it's going to be a lot more fulfilling for you in the whole experience of gardening when you learn to just embrace it all. Don't just only celebrate the good parts, celebrating the victories, but you're also going to just really get in and enjoy the learning process, the growing process, because your garden's growing, but so are you. So enjoy the process, not just the results. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and those tips were helpful for you in planting your first time vegetable garden. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing so you can get all my latest videos. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.